meeting to order. Roll call, you want to start us out? Bob?
Dave Coyne's on his way.
Bacon present.
Smith present.
Johnson present.
Zalad here.
Keekwam here.
Gunning here.
Cars here.
Big here.
Big here.
Just in time, thank you. You ever get committed to the fast food line, you get caught in there, and it's like turns into a...
You need to have one of those double,
turns into the slow food line?
No.
Well, believe me,
you're committed at that point, right?
once you're in the
Can't-
line,
no
you
turning
can't
back.
back out.
No pulling out.
Alrighty, we're just starting item 3, approval of the agenda.
Okay.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by
Johnson.
Johnson, support by Zalad to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Also in your packet, item 4, meeting minutes from February 19th. How are those looking to everybody?
Accurate to me.
Motion?
So motion that we approve the meeting minutes from February 19th as presented.
Motion by Zalad, support by Gunning, did I hear? Or Bars.
Bars.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Meeting minutes are approved. Item 5, public comment. Got one guest for later, but. Yeah, moving on to reports. Item 6, letter of recommendation from the Township Sidewalk and Pathways Prioritization Committee in your packet. You know, walk us through that, some of this, Mark?
Well, the letter itself is from the Sidewalk Pathways Committee. They're a committee that's been in existence for a number of years, kind of reactivated a year and a half ago. And they just wanted to send a communication to the authority to encourage the Township Board and the authority to construct a sidewalk along Lincoln here from Pickard to M20. That's just simply a receive and file. There's no action. It's just a communication from one body within the township to another.
Okay.
Yeah, related to that, I know we're talking about that surface paving of Lincoln, the same length. I just hope everybody understands, like, the sidewalk has to be a direct function of the greater topography, engineering design of the road itself when that goes to be improved upon. So I just hope the committees and planners kind of are making that connection.
The committee understands the challenges. This is just simply a letter to this authority. You know,
Oh, yeah.
if you have an
Yeah,
opportunity to.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Not breaking ground tomorrow or anything, but.
Right.
Okay, well, let's let that.
I agree, though, Tom, good planning is a key, because if you look forward, there's opportunities to save money that you might have said, wish we would have done that. And so looking forward, I think, is a key that sometimes can be easily put off to, well, we'll get to that. But I think that's an important issue. I'm glad you brought it up.
So you want to let the record show receipt of this letter?
Sure.
Moving on to 6B, accounts payable.
So the monthly approval of the accounts payable run. The February meeting was canceled, so what we're approving tonight are the checks that were issued last month and actually mailed out to the vendors. We didn't want to make them wait. And then also this current month's check run. The checks from last month I ended up signing. I have signatory authority, so they were able to get out into the mail to the vendors. The East DDA is the only entity with check approvals for January and February. I'm not going to run through all of them, but just the larger ones: Consumers Energy for 2 months, $1,400. Doug Small Engine for snow removal on Pickard for January, February, and March. The township payments to the township water and sewer fund respectively in the total amount of $136,000. That's for the water main loop project out on Pickard and partial payment on the pump station #1 projects that you all had previously approved. There's a payment to Goodrow and Associates for a little over $4,000 for the continuation of the planning activities for Jamison Park rehabilitation. The total accounts payable run is $148,587.07. Be happy to answer any questions on any of those payments, and then you should vote to approve those payments.
Questions, comments? Motion?
Motion to approve the East DDA checking, or the bills payables for the months of February and March as presented.
Support.
Motion by Zalid, support by Johnson. Approved check register. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion's carried.
The next item on the agenda, item 6C, is the receipt and filing of the financial reports, the budget to actual reports, and the balance sheet, and these are through March of 2019. There's no action needed on this. The East DDA budget to actual report begins on page 6 of your agenda packet. There's just $4,500 of revenue that's been received so far this year of interest income. That's normal. You can look at the far left column and see that prior years, none of the revenue comes in until we start collecting the taxes, which is the July and December time frames. The expenditures, I will point out that the snow plowing, which is done for the year, is over budget, so we'll have to address that in the mid-year budget amendment. We did have a bit of snow this winter. And then the rest of the expenses are just what I would consider normal operating expenses, along with some expenses related to the projects that you'd already approved and we're just simply executing. And you've approved those expenses via your accounts payable approval over just a few minutes ago in the prior months. The West DDA, same comments, just the interest income. No expenses so far yet in the West DDA. And then there is no activity in the general obligation debt fund. You won't see that report after this month, actually. So there's nothing that I would consider that stands out in the budget to actual reports through the first quarter of 2019, with possible exception of noting the snow plowing expense. Again, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Good to me.
Questions, comments, anybody? Let the record show, we received financial statements as presented.
The other component to the financial reports that's in your packet are the balance sheets. Again, this is also a receive and file. It's just for your information. The East DDA balance sheet is on page 10 of your packet. The fund balance at the end of the first quarter was $1,092,000 and some change. The West DDA fund balance is $1,019,000. The West DDA general obligation fund balance is now 0. You'll stop seeing that report moving forward. Essentially all of the fund balance in both the East and the West DDA funds is in the form of cash. And it might look a little different this year, being kind of close to year end, in terms of liabilities that are described as deferred revenue. And if you have any questions of that technical nature, Ms. Sherry Teal, the finance director, is here to answer any of those. But you have sufficient fund balance for all the projects that you're contemplating. It's all in the form of cash, so you're liquid. And that'll continue to build through the year as we record additional tax increment revenue.
Questions, comments? Looks good.
Looks good.
Item 6D, our board member expiration matrix. Jim and I are good to go. Got swore in tonight.
Let's see. Let's have Cheryl Hunter in June.
You gonna
We'll have to
approach
get-
her and
yeah,
see if she wants to stay on?
Yeah. I'll text her after the meeting, see what her thoughts are. I think she was pretty, last time I talked to her, I thought she was gonna go ahead and get an application in.
Oh, good. Okay, moving on to 6E, water and sewer projects progress report.
So those begin on page 15 of your agenda packet. The first project report is the water main loop out there on Pickard Street. That project is essentially complete and has been completed. There's a little bit of cleanup work that has had to wait till the spring, and as we're now into spring and getting close to some more decent weather, we'll get that buttoned up out there. The next project report is on page 16. That's the pump station number 1 work. We had a bid opening on March 10th. I will note, and it's in your report as well, those bids came in considerably higher than what we were budgeting, anticipating, as much as 70% higher. And so we're recommending that we not move forward on that project at this time, that we rebid it in the fall for hopefully some better bids, and then it would be work done in the 2020 construction season. We received 2 bids. One was just under $600,000, the other was just over $700,000. And we just thought there was a combination of anomalies going on in the market that we're hopeful that if we rebid this in the fall, we might get some better pricing. So that's where that project stands, and that's where it'll stand until the fall, unless you all want to direct us to do something different.
How was that advertised?
In all the normal bid rooms and avenues.
Out there, and Gordy Fraser put that out.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
the-
It followed all the normal protocols.
Huh.
Yeah,
There's a lot. March.
there's a lot of lift station work out there, not very many people that do just lift station work, so.
Yeah.
But that's fine, rebid it.
It felt to us like the industry, there just wasn't enough capacity to be taking on more work, was our kind of conclusion. It's not an emergency type of thing, so we have the luxury of waiting a bit.
That's what the engineer recommends?
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay by me, but I just don't wanna be in the same worst boat in the fall.
We'll continue to monitor that project. And then the other report project is Pump Station 14. The Board of Trustees approved the construction bid for that in February. There was a pre-construction meeting held in March. There is a pretty significant delivery wait time on the pump itself of 16 weeks. But that project will be completed yet this year. So we're just kind of in a waiting phase right now for delivery of the pump.
Okay.
No actions needed on those updates.
Nope, good update. Questions, comments? Our existing projects? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business.
So the next item in your agenda is item 7A. It's a consideration to approve a service agreement with Plant Moran in an amount not to exceed $6,000 to assist us in developing a framework to implement Public Act 57, which was approved by the legislature in late or mid to late 2018. What Public Act 57 does is consolidates all the various downtown development and TIF related pieces of legislation. There's like 7 of them that cover local development, finance authorities, DDAs, TIF, TIFAs. And so what's happened is the legislature's consolidated all those acts into one act. And they've added a couple things that focus on increasing reporting that goes out to the state and the local units of government that we capture tax revenue from, and to the public. So they're trying to focus on transparency, better information flow. Over the years, there's been, I'll call it a debate, as to what happens with all these tax increment dollars. There's DDAs all over the state. Every city has one. They last forever, and there's taxing units that are sharing their revenue with these authorities, such as ours, and sometimes they get a little nervous about if the money they're giving up out of their general fund is being spent well. And so the legislature has addressed that by passing Public Act 57, and it significantly increases the annual reporting that each authority must do to both the State Department of Treasury, the governing bodies of all the municipalities that share their revenue and that are captured by this authority. The report needs to contain detailed information on the amount of tax increments that are being captured, what it's being used for, detailed information on debt that might be outstanding by any of the authorities, and then some progress and status reports on how the development plans that have been approved by each of these bodies in conjunction with your financing plans, how those are being executed. Are they, are the projects that are being done by the various authorities, do they foot with the development plans? So all that kind of reporting is required. They've increased some sanctions, and I know they've increased oversight by Treasury on the DDAs. And if push comes to shove, the Treasury can remove the ability of the authorities to capture these tax increment revenues. This authority captures between the east and the west DDAs about $700,000 a year from various taxing units, Union Township itself, counties, intermediate school districts, those kinds of places. So there's a lot of money at stake, and it's important that we understand, because we're, as staff, we're the ones that are going to have to do it. You all are ultimately responsible for it. But we want to be able to understand what the reporting requirements are, what this framework, we want to have some assistance in building the framework that then we can, moving forward, simply execute. And so that's the purpose of this service agreement. The act itself is over 100 pages long. We're recommending that this service agreement be entered into in an amount not to exceed $6,000. I think it's money well spent. And then we'll have something that then we can build into our annual routine and report out as required. So that's this item on your agenda, and be happy to answer any questions you may have on this item.
So this would kind of only, this is like drawing up a template so that in the future you'd be able to do this.
It's a one-time expense.
It's a one-time expense to set you up with what the reporting requirements are.
A template, a framework.
Yes.
We can understand what all the reporting requirements are, when they're due, what the reporting forms or content is supposed to be, so that hopefully moving forward we know what we're supposed to file, when we're supposed to file it, what the form it is it's supposed to take. Part of this involves website, putting more information, highlighting it as DDA information on a page of your own or a tab within Union Township's page for transparency and to both the public, the taxing units, and Department of Treasury. One time.
And Plant and Moran is kind of, they're kind of like the big one in the state doing this, or did you shop at all, or did they?
I did not shop. I did not shop on this. I was reading. Public Act 57 has been on my mind for a while, and how we were going to manage the reporting requirements. There was a article in one of our publications. It might have been the Michigan Township Association or the Michigan Municipal League monthly newspapers or magazines, where there was an article written by a couple of the partners from Plant Moran, and that triggered me to reach out to them to see if they do any of this work that I was thinking of, because we don't have the capacity to wade through a 110-page public act and figure out what needs to be done and when and where and all that. When we got $700,000 at risk, you know, there's a lot that we're doing, and so I thought this made a certain amount of sense, and that's why I'm bringing it forward to this body.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Under scope of services, Mark, it says may include development of the schedules. And would that be something like giving the staff the deadlines and the filing times that were required as part of that? Would they kind of oversee at least the first year to make sure those were met properly? Could that be part, is that what I'm seeing that? Is that beyond?
Some of the templates are going to be defined and developed by Treasury. You know, they're going to have a form that we have to fill out. Other information is going to be, here's what they need to receive, and we need to develop the format for it. So that's what's kind of referred to as the schedules and templates. So not in all cases will every form be developed by this exercise, because Treasury's going to develop some of them themselves. But we still have to understand what that is, where the information is, and it's one of the things it's going to do is require us to pay more attention to our development plan, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think this body does a pretty good job of that. Project list that you all developed a year and a half or so ago, the very starting point of that whole discussion with the subcommittee was the development plan itself that was adopted and amended back in the mid-90s, maybe amended as in the 2000s for one of the EDAs.
Okay.
Do you think they have some expertise in helping us to improve on that development plan, and as far as the
that is not within the scope.
Okay.
Reviewing the development plan, updating it, getting it through the approval process, that is not part of the scope of this. The development plan right now is what it is. The boundaries are defined. The general type of work that can be spent with these tax increment revenues are defined in the plan. Infrastructure work, beautification work.
Could we include that as part of it and say, you know, or is it too late to do that as the work is ongoing, an assessment of our development plan for both the east and the west DDA, just their
I would suggest
view
that if the board wanted to go down that road, that be a separate discussion. You may recall your current development plans are several inches thick. That's quite an exercise.
A different animal of
Yes.
municipal master planning with land planners and civil versus this is more of an accounting, auditing, legal kind of a program.
Much
So
of
we did
this
that, we
reporting
probably-
coming out of this act is going to be due within 90 days of the end of this current fiscal year, although there was one item that was required to be executed by April or March 30th, I think, and that had to do with posting the development plans as amended on the website, and that, you know, sounds easy enough, but
Find
then
out
you got to go
everything we
back and
haven't
find it.
yeah, right.
And if you can't show Treasury that you got them, then, you know.
And just
Right.
for everybody's information, I mean, one of the benefits, I guess, what I've been proud of this board, this whole effort for all these years, is we have a very, very low overhead DDA, east and west. And the staff, these people do all of our work that are full-time. So in comparison, you go into big metropolitan DDAs, I mean, they have buildings, vehicles, equipment, staff, personal assistants, you know. But, so we run it pretty lean, so this is the least we can do to keep everything straight and narrow and assist. So with that, can I get a motion?
I move that we approve service agreement with Plant and Moran as provided here before us at a cost not to exceed $6,000.
Support.
Motion by Johnson. I think Bob, you were gonna.
Dave got it.
Okay. Motion by Johnson, support by Coin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And motion's carried.
The next item is to consider approval of an annual payment to Mid-Michigan Development Corporation in the amount of $5,000 that we're recommending to be split equally between the East and West DDA in support of the economic development activities that the Mid-Michigan Development Corporation undertakes. As I'm sure you all know, MMDC is a full-service economic development resource for the region, county, city, township. They've existed since at least the early 1980s and have provided services to Isabella County and companies within the county, municipalities within the county. They also service Clare County. They work for established and new businesses in the region. They work with the local municipalities in their economic development activities. They work with the state of Michigan, various other federal agencies to essentially stimulate and encourage economic growth in the area. Since at least 2005, the township has supported MMDC with a $10,000 annual contribution. The township manager, myself, is a board member of the MMDC. There's a letter in your packet from Mr. McBride, the executive director. Their expenses, like all of ours, have increased over the years, and they're have requested of the township to increase the annual contribution from $10,000 to $15,000. And the staff recommends that this additional $5,000 be provided by the EDA as the mission of your authority and the Development Corporation. There's just a lot of synergy there, and it seems to me to make a lot of sense. I will give Mr. McBride an opportunity here to say a few words on behalf of the Development Corporation.
Thank you, Mark. I think best way to really talk a little bit about what we do, and Ben has heard this before because I report pretty regularly to the full township board, but I wanted to give you our annual report. If you look on the inside here in the page 3, the little orange box, we work with companies in the area, and they report back to us in terms of some of the metrics, and this has been more the focus in recent years, is get some metrics to see what we're doing. And you can see in 2018, over $34 million was invested by companies in the area. Grants received that we were directly involved in went to local companies, 569,000. 299 new hires, 157 company visits, and 302 company assists. So obviously there'll be situations where a certain company might get 2 or 3 different assistance things from us, so that's why the assists are higher than the number of company visits. We also use this as a marketing tool for site selectors and companies out of the area. So next couple pages have a little bit about the area with CMU, Mid-Michigan Community College, and this is a great place to live and work. I'm going to be real brief with this. Just flip over to the next page, page 6. We were faced with a situation, and of course this company's in the city, but they employ a lot of people in the township. American Mitsuba, which you may know, they do parts for Honda and other Japanese cars that they mostly do motors for electric motors for windshield wipers, windows, and fans. And they recently got the new contract with Broza so that they will be making those same type of parts for BMW and Ford. So they needed to hire additional 45 people, include a new line, a new press. The problem was they have really maxed out their building here in Mount Pleasant, whereas their other building in Bardstown, Kentucky had plenty of extra room. They were going to be able to put this line down there for no real additional charge, just the new hires and the press. But here they not only have to do that, but they've got to expand the building and reconfigure the building, and it was going to cost over $30 million. So what we were able to do is get MEDC to write a check for $360,000, which I presented to the company there in late last year. And the commitment then was to keep the company here, or keep that additional business here. So there'll be 45 additional jobs hired in the area. So yes, Mark is right. We do try to attract companies to come in, but our main bread and butter is working with the companies that are already here and making sure they're healthy and making sure they expand here, stay here and expand here. American Mitsubishi is a great example of that. Unified Brands was looking to be consolidated and moved down to Mississippi, and we were able to convince the corporate leadership to keep them here in the Wademan area. Bandit has had 2 expansions as well, and 25 to 30 new jobs with Bandit. Skip the next 2 pages because this really outlines how we work with companies on abatements. And just want to mention quickly the $2.6 million Marshall Plan amounts of money that are coming back to this area from the state. 90 school districts, and school district had to apply for this. Economic development folks couldn't apply, but I was intimately involved in both of the Gratiot Isabella application and the Claire Gladwin application. In fact, I was personally the convener of Claire Gladwin. I was on the board for Gratiot Isabella. So we applied along with 90 other applicants. 9 were selected statewide, and 2 of the 9 were R2. And so we've got, I'll let you read more about that, but we have $2.6 million coming into the area to help educate our students in the high schools and below to get them ready for the jobs that are really here. And in fact, in the Claire Gladwin, they're actually going to get a certificate if they enroll in this program, go through and get their certificate as they graduate from high school. They can become a certified mechanic, certified diesel mechanic, and there are jobs out there. I mean, we've got a shortage of mechanics. So this is a real way to connect our kids with jobs that are there. A couple more quickie things I want to mention. The Defense Center state, as Mark mentioned, I work closely with the state of Michigan. The Michigan Defense Center, which is part of MEDC, they have given us a grant to hire Brian Roberts, who is working in the area to convince companies to pursue federal contracts with the Defense Department, Homeland Security, because the Defense Department wants to get out beyond Macomb County and Oakland, Macomb, and Kent County. They want to get throughout the state, find smaller companies, a variety of companies that want to do defense and Homeland Security contract work. So we're trying to connect the companies with the department and help them through the first phase, because once they've been approved as a contractor, it's hard the first time. It's easier second and third time because they know you. So that's an initiative that we put together. And then just a couple more. I know that Birch Tank is in the east, on the east side of the township, but we've worked very closely with them on their expansion. And you can see other articles here about Moorbark and others and the grants that we were instrumental in for Skilled Trades Training Fund. Flip over one more time, and I'm kind of proud of this, that we worked with Gratiot County Economic Development, Greater Gratiot, and we co-sponsored with them a study of US 127. And in that study, we said it was holding back economic development here, that 16-mile stretch between Ithaca and St. John's, we all know it well. And we said it's not just holding back economic development, but it's dangerous. And that one intersection, and you can see where this is. This is right where, as you're heading south, the full expressway becomes divided highway. And if you were going north, you could exit off of Bagley there onto Bagley. But if you could see that, if you're heading south off of Bagley Road, you had to cross oncoming highway traffic, and these big trucks were trying to do that. and there were, in the month of January, I believe, 3 fatalities. 3 fatal accidents in 1 month at Bagley. So MDOT finally closed it. And we'd been after them to do that. That was one of the recommendations of our report. They finally closed that. And we are working with them on, they initially did not have that 16-mile stretch on any list. Now it's on the long-term list to eventually be in, that'll be of interest to fans. But it's on the long-term list now to be upgraded to full expressway.
That's
So,
great
yeah.
news. Yeah.
So, and then just some of our sponsors and our clients. You might recognize this individual over here next to me on the right side. But I just want to mention that a couple of our other clients did agree this year to increase their funding up to $15,000, because I'm the 3rd president, and I've been here about 4 years now. But all the contracts that we've had in place with our clients were written many years ago, written when George Dunn was here, and they were not, none of them included like an inflation factor or anything, so they've been at a fixed amount for many years. So City of Harrison, City of Clare agreed to go up to 15, and I wanted to approach Mark, and I did, and he was very supportive and thought this would be the best way to do it, to approach it this way with the west and the east side. So I just wanted to present a little bit about that and what we do, and why we're asking for a little bit more support, because we haven't had an inflation factor, and this would be an adjustment that we would then leave for, foreseeable future. We wouldn't be coming back like a year or 2 from now and asking for more. So, is that cover it? Okay.
Jim, I got a question
Yeah.
for you. And I've asked you this question before, but is Mid-Michigan Development Corporation, are they at this point in time discussing the demographics of our region and
Yes.
this perception that nationally, when they look at the numbers here and how it's skewed, are you doing anything to address that as far as dissuading some of those numbers?
Well, are you talking about the housing factor, or the Alice population, or the poverty level?
When you see national publications like Forbes magazine
Yeah.
rate this area as like the poorest in the state of Michigan, and they're looking at the local home ownership next to rentals and the average income, and we all know living here that this is not the poorest county in the state of Michigan.
No, it's not.
University,
Yeah.
they include those in the statistics, so.
Yeah, and so I've seen two national publications in the last 5 years that have put us at the bottom, and they're using these numbers that don't really tell the story of this community.
You're right. Yeah. And I think just mentioned it, that what they're doing is they're including the students who are going to school, typically not earning money, and they're accumulating debt and they're renting. So that is skewing our numbers. We still have a pretty significant poverty factor here and so on, but you're right. It's probably on par with Midland County and Gratiot County, but we get skewed because of the fact that we include all these college students in the numbers. So that distorts it. I think people understand, this is a great place to live and work, and cost of living is fairly low, but the amenities are high. We got a lot here going for us in the area, and we've brought site selectors up, and they're impressed. They're impressed with the university. They're impressed with Mid-Michigan College. They're impressed with what they see, and we've got a vibrant downtown as well, and the township is growing like leaps and bounds. So I think we've got a great story when we get to tell it. It's and that's part of why you need us, because you need somebody out there telling that story. Because if people look at the stats, they're going to have a different distorted view. So that's part of what we do, and I do spend quite a bit of time with site selectors, and I work closely with the state, because that's my inroad, because the state brings them in, and I go meet with site selectors whenever the state brings them in. The other thing I'll mention too, real quick, is, you know, Jim Holton approached me sometime back and mentioned his rent situation with Valero, and he wanted to move to the township. So Mark did an amazing job. I gotta say, major props to Mark and the township here. But I also like to say we had a little bit to do with that, and you know, in terms of talking with you know, with Jim and what his options were, and you know, helping that along the way too. But major props to the township for moving so quickly on the permitting and everything to get Jim in there. But we were working with Jim all along on that. So
I'd compliment Jim and the Mid-Michigan Development Corporation. I think they do a tremendous job. I think they're a great asset to the community. I would support us to contribute an additional $5,000.
So moved.
I've been making a lot of motions, so I'll give Jay something else.
They weren't. Motion.
As
Jim?
Alan. To approve the request to provide $5,000 in support of MADC's economic development activities.
With the additional 5,000?
The additional 5,000 as presented.
Comments, questions? Or support?
Support.
Support. Motion by Van. Motion by Zalid, support by Johnson. Hearing no comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
I probably have to
Motion's
abstain.
carried.
I probably have to abstain. because
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not-
Are you still getting money from the program? Or?
Me?
Yeah. Well, then there's no worry to be.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
you know, he advises me all the time.
Yeah, well, unless there's some money changing hands, you probably are safe.
Just a free lunch once in a while.
There you go.
Mr. Bars is on the board as well, and
Yep.
I mean, we could put you down as abstain.
If you think I should abstain, I don't have any direct conflict, it's just
Mark?
perception. But I'll.
I don't think it's necessary. You acknowledge the issue, and if this board wanted you to abstain, I think the appropriate action, they'd take a vote on it.
Okay, then I would
Let the
go in
record
favor of
show.
it then.
How expensive is the free lunch you get?
I have to buy.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. McBride,
Yep,
for the update.
thanks, Jim.
Yep, thanks, Jim.
Thank you for that. And then my last comment on that issue is, wasn't mentioned, but I think it was reported out maybe 6 months or so ago. But Mr. McBride is on the MEDC board. And so having that local representation there really, I think is really powerful. So then moving on with your agenda.
Yeah, what do you got, 7C?
And that is consider approval of a participation agreement with the Isabella County Road Commission for the refurbishment of Lincoln Road from M20 up to Pickard in the amount of $204,057. The write-up on this is on page 30 of your agenda packet. In February of I think last year, 2018, the EDA approved a project list to kind of guide the group through 18 and 19, and for both the East and the West EDA. This road improvement out here was part of that list. The Lincoln Road is within the boundaries of the West EDA. You approved a budget, your FY19 budget, to rehabilitate this road. You allocated $170,000. At that time, that was based on the estimates that we had back when we were first starting to talk about this project. We've received the pricing from the road commission. The contract, as noted, is $204,000. So it's about $30,000 more than what was already appropriated in your budget. To move forward, we would require and bring back to you a budget amendment in the amount of $30,000, which will come to you in June if you approve this. But this is simply, in my mind, an execution of the direction that the EDA is set out a year ago.
Is the description of the work performed, it says 5,230 feet mill and 2-inch overlay? Does that mean they're gonna scrape the top 2 inches off, or are we just going with the overlay?
The 2 inches, I believe, is the additional asphalt after they've done some scraping
Okay,
or milling.
milling, okay, so they are gonna take some of the top off and just
Yeah, they're
put it
gonna
back,
mill,
basically.
and then they're gonna put 2
Okay.
inches of new asphalt down on top.
Okay. It's like we talked about it before, so.
Yep.
Now, this includes curb and gutter, are they replacing the curb and gutter then in the corner, back to the entryway into the,
Where there is curb and gutter, like in front of the township hall, there's a little bit, but along much of the stretch, there's not. So they're not adding curb and gutter where it doesn't exist.
gotcha. Are we anticipating, since we also were looking at building a sidewalk out in front, is that gonna include crosswalk at the corner then too, or?
I don't know anything about the crosswalk.
Yeah, that would be a separate, that'd be a concrete thing there, I think. With this contract is just strictly a asphalt operation, so I don't see any, from what is described, I don't see anything that's gonna increase the cost when we go to put the sidewalk in or put any ramps or anything in there for crosswalks. I think that's, basically, we're gonna have to remove some curb and, cut that down for the handicap ramps, and then it'll be striping after that for whatever we wanna put across it.
Is there a timetable on doing any improvements to Lincoln Road besides this resurfacing?
Not that I'm aware of.
See, that's kind of where I was going. Once
know
this
you
is
won't.
done, this is gonna
Yeah.
take the sidewalk
Yeah.
out for a long time, because we won't need to do the road for a while.
Yeah. Why
You
would-
you
yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Well,
But-
specifically say additional curb.
Yeah.
Or,
Is there a
We-
long-term, are we on
Yeah.
a long-term
You can
schedule
ask-
for
you can ask
Lincoln
that
Road
question.
north of 20? Is it on any schedule for any improvements? Because I know that south of 20 on Lincoln has been on the
yeah.
agenda
Yeah.
for a few years now,
Yep.
but it's gonna be done. At
Yeah,
least
there's
part of
really
it
no
will.
reason.
Jim might be able to answer that, because I think
No,
I remember
no.
him mentioning something about that before.
As
Was
far as what, I'm sorry?
Lincoln Road, as far as, Marty's question was basically like, is there plans to upgrade it to a Class A at
I-
any, have you heard
I'm
anything
not
about-
aware of any plans to widen it out or do anything.
You
I
talking
mean, up here,
You talking about
this
just
way.
this stretch here, or are you talking about over by the,
No,
by
this
the
stretch
river?
right here,
Well,
from
the river's gonna be
Pickard,
Class A.
from
That's
Pickard
when-
down
when
to
they do the
20.
renovation south, it's gonna be Class A.
Okay.
I'm referring to Pickard down to 20,
Can I-
this section.
Well,
The question comes up now, the city's master plan, if I read it in the paper right, didn't they wanna move Pickard, the M20 to Pickard and Lincoln? If they do that, I mean, they're gonna need all of they're gonna need a lot more work than what we're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that just a dream, or?
Well, I think that's
Just do
been
the inside
discussed
2 lanes
many
and then
times
put it-
over
I-
many years.
I think some
Maybe
people
us as a
can
board want to address
consider
that
there was
sometime and
pipe
say
involved
that,
in that
that,
dream.
that's, their master plan is in conflict with ours,
Yeah, it'd be nice if there would be like some,
that
Back
maybe
and
we should
forth
let them
over
know
that.
that, from our Economic Development Board Authority doesn't really like their master plan, because it would be like taking all the traffic away from our business district.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't read the article
I've been
because I
involved
couldn't
in
get
those.
into it, but.
No, it's just like, yeah, I mean,
So what it is.
I was on the planning commission 25 years ago, and that was one of the plans was to move it over. It made sense at that time.
Yeah.
But then I think they're reinventing it again, and maybe sometime, it might be 20 years from now they do it, I don't know. But then just something that came up today is that they're repainting the stripes. And now their discussion is to they want to have safe bicycle paths on all their streets. So they want to put safe bicycle paths on Pickard. Now, in order to do that, they have to reduce it to 3 lanes, a turn lane and 2 lanes.
So they're gonna do pretty much what they did on High Street then.
Yeah.
Pardon? Yeah.
Well, they weren't gonna put any medians in or anything like that.
No,
but-
it's just like.
But they're gonna cut that traffic down a little bit.
Oh, you
They'll
bet
cut-
they are, I think.
With just one lane going in each direction and a turn lane in the middle. It's gonna slow it up, and bike lanes on either side, because the mayor was.
Well, there's a meeting
like
coming up
bikes.
on May 8th, and I think I'll go to it, but I'm not crazy about seeing 2 lanes.
So the gist of their, as far as where they want to put M20, it would take traffic away from, or would put traffic on here, and they're trying
Yeah.
to divert it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought they were talking at one point in time about doing, was turning Pickard into essentially M20, right?
Yeah.
And so we would be looking at some
Lincoln.
pretty heavy traffic on this
Lincoln
road.
and Pickard, yeah,
Yeah.
which would route traffic away from our economic development area, which is not what we wanna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you wanna spend a lot of time trying to analyze that program, so it's not gonna happen in my lifetime, I can help. Somebody
But
wants
is
to-
that the only contingency for improving Lincoln Road, that it becomes a byway
No.
to M20?
No,
No.
but
So then,
there's-
are we on any list? Are we on any schedule to do anything with Lincoln Road?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm not aware of, and Vance certainly pays attention to a lot more of that stuff, and, you know, right now, it's just trying to find the funds and everything they put the money into the bridge, we have another project to get down, do the intersection, and they're still gonna have to do from M20 down to the bridge, plus from Broomfield Road, from Lincoln into the city, into the city, well into the city limits, so, I mean, to me, that at least completes that leg, if you're still, a fan of history and the loop projects. And as far as trying to move anything up here, if you're gonna relocate M20, that involves the state.
Well, I think
And I
most
don't,
Yeah, that would be
yeah,
huge.
I think
Yeah.
most people that know where they're going, though, take Pickard up to Lincoln, down to 20 if they're going west. If they would choose that route if they knew that it would get them to M20. So it effectively works as a bypass. So the traffic that we're getting on Lincoln Road and the condition of Lincoln Road needs attention. And so, whether it's a failure that we haven't gotten this on any schedule, that we can say Lincoln Road is a priority and it's gonna be looked at in the year 2020 or 2022, whatever. There's no schedule for that, and whether that's lacking in planning or if that's just a circumstance. The end result is Lincoln Road is very hazardous to drive on. It's got a very narrow shoulder. There's ruts in it that hold water and can hold ice if it freezes. Dangerous conditions, and it's choppy and falling apart. There's hardly a edge that's good on it, and so I think the money that they're asking for, even though it's an increase of almost 20% in what we budgeted for, I think it's got to be done. If we don't see Lincoln Road on the schedule, that's my opinion, we need to look at trying to get this improved so it can be used as a road that it's being used for, a bypass.
sounds like a motion to me.
That's what I was thinking.
I'll support that.
Motion by Fig, support by Bars, to approve this request for EDA board action for the 204,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you. And then just while I'm up here, a couple of comments that I have, and then you'll be able to continue on with your meeting. The work continues on the park bench and trash receptacle project. And I think that is still basically, I think the target for completion was, I want to say late April, and I believe they're still on target for that.
Oh, good.
You will be all, well, you might have had it at your table. We're going to be having a public gathering, public input session for Jamison Park. And so there'll be, there might have been a notice put on your table tonight. If not, you'll receive it electronically. That's going to go out to the residents in the neighborhood will receive a copy of that. All the other boards within the township, the planning commission and so forth will be alerted to this. So trying to get some input from the residents on what they'd like to see go on out there. And that is it. Thank you for your time.
Before you go, I did want to mention too, our lights on Pickard. The same ones that were out in December are still out. We got the one on the corner of Somerton and 20 on the south and west corner. That one, the light didn't work, the Christmas decorations didn't work, and so I don't know if it's just there's no power to that pole. And then there's another pole that's the first one as you're heading east. It'd be on the south side past the expressway. That one doesn't have a dome on it. It's just a light fixture hanging down. And so I don't know if we've had anybody go through there at night and just take an accounting of the.
We all the input. I mean, there's constantly something going on with. I mean, there's just a lot of lights and a lot of things going on there. So any of the input we get, we'll go out and address. We do have people, Amy's one, Larry, that are monitoring the street lights out there and working with the people that make the street poles. We have some poles that we have 3 bases on order that we're having to replace. One of the poles by, I want to say, Shell has been needing to be replaced. We finally have that. And there's other electrical issues on occasion. So we'll make note of that and get it addressed.
Is there a way we have a report on that for our next meeting where it shows the condition of the poles and what needs to be done?
On all?
On the lights that are on that stretch.
Similar to the inventory you took for the park benches and trash receptacles?
Just something, yeah, where we have an idea of if we need to spend the money, then, because it's a bad look when, like, light on, light out, light out, light on, where it's intermittent, and then particularly when you have like that one where the fixtures hasn't been on it for months.
We'll give you an update on what we're currently working on out there.
Yeah, I try to keep an eye on. I think sometimes it's like the automatic with the day change, and sometimes they work. I know what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in that horrible shape though.
When you take a look at that one by the expressway though, right on the south right, it's the last one before you get to the expressway. And that one, like I said, the whole dome's gone on it.
Huh. I think there's one where the shroud is like crooked. Is that what you're talking about?
You know, the one I
Amy
saw
might
was,
have
like,
some more
completely
current
gone.
information for you.
There are
Yeah.
two. There's one with the shroud in front of the water
Water
park
park.
that's been taken care of twice. We're trying to come up with another remedy to get that, because when it's really, really windy or for whatever reason that,
Just
I don't
not
know why.
snapping on
But
it.
that's been taken care of twice, and then there's another one that's all the way down, I think the furthest down on that side of the road that's off too. So those have both been addressed with Black Electric. But as far as the one by the expressway, I did not see that one.
Yeah.
And I did not see that one, but Larry and I are updating Black Electric. It seems like it's weekly with those lights, so.
Well, that one's
it's
in a
not
weird
that they're
spot
not
because
going
it doesn't
unattended.
really, you're like literally right up against the edge of the expressway embankment on that light, so it's kind of a weird spot for a light to begin with, but.
Yep.
Before we go, when we were talking about Lincoln Road, it reminded me of something I think about because I drive that way often, and I think a lot of us do. But when you go from Pickard east of Bradley to Pickard west of Bradley, there's a speed limit change, and then it goes from 45, or it goes, is it 45 in that section or 55?
45.
Bradley to, okay, and then it stays 45 here, because it's 35 to the east of there.
Yeah.
And then it's
City's
45.
35.
And then it stays 45 here until you get down to about where the church is. And then it jumps to 55. And then within a short time, you're at the area where the eye specialist is and the daycare, and there's a lot of stopping and turning. And I'm wondering if we as a body, or at least I'm bringing up the subject for discussion, the idea of maybe mentioning to the road commission that keeping that at 45 makes some sense, rather than trying to go up to 55 and then we're coming into an intersection that is going to be heavily used. As long as it's 45 and then 45, maybe would make sense to keep it 45 for that next quarter, which almost becomes half a mile.
I didn't even know there was a speed limit sign
On
that
Lincoln?
stretch.
I like it. Well, you got a kind of a big field right there too. There's a lot of, you put people down to 45 there. I don't know. I think
Well,
we're
as
gonna-
soon as you get to
Over the
where
hill.
the church is, right here on the east side, it drops, or it jumps to 55.
Right.
And
You got
going
that
down
whole
that
field,
hill.
You
Hmm?
know, you got that, that's a long stretch in there to.
I think those are good thoughts, but those really aren't our
Yeah.
function. It's
Nope.
like speed limits, that's
Probably
way
not.
out.
No, but I was
Even
wondering
the
if we,
lights are
I
maintenance.
wondered if we could make a recommendation based on some of the things that we
'Cause
see
that's,
here.
that's a mega formula. State police and the
Yeah,
county, and they actually put their
Road
timers
commission,
out,
yeah.
road commission, and whatever
Yeah,
the
that's
traffic's flowing, that's what they posted at. And it's like a mega program to try to,
Change.
you know,
Yeah.
you might
And
wanna
the first
visit
thing they'll look at, obviously, one of the key factors is just accidents. And if you don't have a higher, just like you got a safety grant for the intersections on Isabella, and why? Because there were several accidents, so unless you've got some data like that, then you won't, it's pretty hard, they've got enough stuff going on. But anyway, yeah, if you wanna, but I'm with Tom, I think that's probably a little beyond our scope of the board here as far as what I'd like to pursue.
And I think everybody's busy. We'll call this meeting adjourned.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
6:24. Thank you.